What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Gem B. I'm your host, Zoomer Cincy, and today I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different than Bitcoin. I'm going to be showing you guys another project that I've been working on. I've been doing super basic, just programming with Claude, literally the free version of Claude, on just some things that I've been wanting to have in my life as tools. And a project I've been working on for the past few years is just a college football ranking system. I got super into college football a few years ago, and I found the whole rankings process pretty fascinating, especially how the college football playoff rankings are done. It seemed pretty weird to me that they would rely on such important rankings and use a committee of people that have pretty obvious biases, and just I feel like they're not really able to quantify what's happening correctly into the rankings. I just felt like the rankings were pretty bad. And even in the regular season, I feel like the AP poll is pretty bad. Obviously, not all of these media people are watching every single game and really having insight into all the teams. And so I built this Google Sheet for myself a while ago to kind of track the rankings myself based on math that I thought made sense. And you can see kind of the history of my top 25s since I've been doing this. And before you make fun of me about how bad this looks, I spent probably no time on how this looked because the process of logging every game and keeping track of the schedule took hours every weekend, like hours, north of 5 hours a week, probably easily north of 5 hours a week. So I was spending all my time doing that. Basically, every week I would go to ESPN and I would copy over the schedule into a notes file on my computer, and then I would assign all of my rankings to the teams that were in the top 25 onto that schedule. So I knew the schedule based on my rankings. And then when a game was done, I would assign points based off of this point system that I've created. Everything in black is assigned to a winning or losing team after a regular season or a postseason game. And then these gold boxes here are applied only to teams in certain postseason games. And so basically after a game, I would come in here and then say UNLV just won a game, and I would come up here and I would do equals and then everything that applied to them. And I do that for every FBS team after every game for the whole season to keep track of the rankings. And besides time, one of the big downfalls was if a team beat someone ranked in the top 25 at the time of the game, like say Ole Miss gets a win against number 2 Miami in week 1, but then Miami drops out of the top 25 by the end of the season, Ole Miss is still getting credit for a win over the number 2 team, because I couldn't really think of a way to do it when I was doing it manually, where it was like dynamically updating based on their opponent's current rankings. Hence, I decided to build something with Claude, a little HTML file that runs in my browser. It's a dashboard that does all of this for me and dynamically updates, and it even has an API. I'm using collegefootballdata.org. I have an API key. And so basically, after every week, I'll hit this little API refresh button, and I'll import that week. You can see for 2026, there's no game data for me to pull in yet. But when I do, I'll pull it in, I'll hit refresh, and I'll hit refresh the rankings, and it'll do it all for me and re-rank everybody. And basically the way I do the rankings, we can take a look at my key, because it is actually the same. I'll show it to you in the other application in a second. But I basically give points like this. So if you win a game, you get a point. You get points assigned to you based on where that team's ranked in the FBS. Currently, that's 1 through 136 FBS teams, and then FCS. So you can see you get 15 points for beating the number 1 team, and it goes down by 0.1 points for each ranking, and that dynamically updates throughout the season. So wherever the team is currently that you beat is how many points you get assigned. So your point score for a game can adjust throughout the season. And then FCS half a point. And then I give points based on the conference of your opponent that you beat. So if you beat someone in the top ranked conference, then you get 5 points, and it goes down slightly for each conference. FCS 0. And you might be asking yourself, well, how do you rank the conferences? Simple. I basically just take the average score of the conference and then I rank them. So the highest average score for each conference in a row. And last year it finished like this. So you might be surprised the ACC finished with the 5th best average score. So they're going to start next season as the 5th tier conference. But the conferences are re-ranked at the end of each week. So after all the games have been logged, you look at the average scores again for the conference and you re-tier them appropriately. And same thing, if you beat a team and in the beginning of the season, they're in the tier 1 conference, but then they drop down to the tier 2 conference, your score will be dynamically updating throughout the season to account for where your opponent or your opponent's conference currently sits. And then I assign points based on how many points you beat the other team by. So you're basically getting 0.125 points per point that you beat them by. And then you get additional points depending if it was a conference or out of conference game. So basically baseline 1.5 points unless you're playing an FCS team. If it's in the conference, you get an extra half point essentially. And then for the location win, if you're at home, baseline 2 points, neutral 2.5 points, and road win 3 points. And then you can see here I've got extra points to the conference champions, playoff wins, bowl wins. That's to kind of keep the rankings going through the postseason. And then similarly, we have points taken away from the loser. So if you lose, baseline 10 points against. And then basically we flipped this over here. So instead of getting 15 points for beating the number 1 team, if you lose to the worst team in the FBS, it's minus 15 points and then goes down by, or I guess it would go up by 0.1 from there. And then FCS is minus 25. And then also your location loss. So if you lose on the road, that's minus 3, minus 4 neutral, minus 5 home. And then we have, again, just the conference tier loss. So if you lose to the best conference, minus 5, worst conference, minus 8.25, and then minus 20 for the FCS. And then a mirror of the point win, point loss, except you're getting the points subtracted. So that's how I calculate my rankings real quick. I think this is where I can view and edit my legend. So basically we're looking at that again, except I can actually change the points system and it'll update dynamically for me if I want to adjust the way that points are calculated. So that's pretty cool. Another feature that I like, real quick, I literally started building this yesterday. So this is literally just one day of work using the free version of Claude. And I've had to take breaks because I have the free version and I use too much power. Another cool thing is we can actually click into a team here and we'll see that there's no schedule yet, no games played for 2026. That's going to be something I'm going to add in an update. I can't do any updates right now, but I have some future prompts right now. I'll show you in a second, but we can go back to their prior season. So let's look at their 2025 schedule and I can see every game that they played and I can see their game score. So this is just a sum of the points for that game that they earned. Which updates dynamically throughout the season. And then basically their team scores an average of all of their game scores. And that's how I rank them. But it's cool. We can go back and see their game scores and their schedules from prior years. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then at the top, it gives you kind of like Indiana. They're in the Big Ten. They're currently ranked number 1. That's their record, and that's their team score right now. Everyone's at 0 because it's the off season. One thing is prior to the 2026 upcoming season, I would only save the top 25 from a season. So I don't have the full FBS standings from 2025 to base it off of. So basically for week 0 and 1, it's going to have the top 25 ranked, but then after that, it just did like by conference. So the SEC has the next teams and then Big Ten and so on. And I'm okay with that. That's going to be like decimal points of difference just for one season. And it should balance itself out over the year. So this is just going to be like our starting point now for 2026. So you can see I have all the conferences here. It'll have their FBS rankings on the side. It'll have a little more detail in here, like their conference record, their home, neutral, away record versus the top 25 record, and then their team scores. We got all the conferences here for the FBS. Really cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is really cool. I'm not following. I'm treating these two Pac-12 teams for now as independents. Just so you know. And then I've got my full FBS rankings. So this would be like the current full FBS rankings here. And you can see it's just like by conference right now for week 0 of next season. But then that'll balance out once the games start being played. And then I've got my history here. So for the prior year, since I've been doing my rankings, it's only going to have the top 25. But starting with this season, it'll have the full FBS rankings for each season in their conference. And their record, and then it'll also have in the future it'll have their game scores or their team scores as well. But yeah, this I mean I think this is pretty cool. So yeah, now I'm just gonna show you real quick just some prompts that I'm gonna be trying to push these updates in about an hour and a half when I get more compute with Claude. But the first thing I'm gonna do is change. Let me show you. I'm going to change this in the schedule. See how this is italicized? I like the font and the color and the size and everything they use, but I just want this to not be italicized anymore. So that's what I'm saying here. And then I'm also saying that I don't like the blue highlight here for the ranking. I want the ranking to be matching this font for the opponent, but I just want it to be a little bit smaller, maybe like even match like this font over here in size. So I want to change that as well. And then the reason it's not giving me any games for the 2026 season, even though the schedules are released for the regular season, is because it's basing this data off of the API that we're pulling in, which is only completed game data. And so I believe the way this is going to work in the season, if I left this unchanged, is after week 0 or week 1, it would just show me their week 1 game here. And it wouldn't show me their upcoming schedule. And I can't see their upcoming schedule for the 2026 season. But I want to be able to see that. So like I want to see this just without the results. And so I wrote a little prompt here that says, another thing I want to add is the upcoming schedule for 2026. Even though the API isn't giving us anything for 2026 yet because the season hasn't started, we should be able to pull the upcoming games for all FBS teams for weeks 0 through 14, plus Army versus Navy for 2026. Let's try to add that to the schedule window for 2026. Show me their upcoming schedules. When a game goes final, we will pull in the game data from our API and have it formatted the same way with the final score and game score for that game. And I should say the same way as our prior final seasons, just so he has a little more context. I've learned like the key is just over explain everything, give them as much context as you can, give them as many give the AI as many details as you can. And I mean, I was shocked with this. Like, I've been doing this for so long and I was like, there's no way that the AI is going to actually give me what I want. And it gave me what I wanted. I can even log a game manually. Like if the API goes down, I could still log games manually. And if I try to log a game that's already been logged, so like if a game's been pulled in through the API and then I try to manually log it, it'll show me a little window that says, hey, this is like a dupe entry. Do you want to overwrite the API entry or do you want to cancel this manual entry, or vice versa? If I've already manually logged a game and then I pull it in through the API, when I hit the API refresh, it'll be like, hey, this game's flagged as having a dupe entry. Do you want to overwrite your manual entry or do you want to cancel this API refresh for this game? So yeah, I mean, this is insane. Like I built this in one day, just like a few hours. And I'm sure I'm going to have this like a lot better. I'll keep you all updated, before the season starts. Like, I don't know. This is just like mind blowing for me because of how much time it's going to save me and just the little amount of time it took me. And I have no computer, like I have zero coding experience. And I know this is just like an HTML file. I'm running like a proxy server in my Mac terminal, and I'm just running this file in my browser. But this is so cool. Like, this is so sick. So I can't wait to just think of other things to build like this. Like, I've been building, like, if you missed my first video, I did I built a Bitcoin mining dashboard. So like this is like a dashboard for my Bitcoin miners that run at home. So this was the first thing I built. It's still loading. Yeah. This is the first thing that I built. And this was like really cool. And it's still booting up. Sometimes it takes a second to connect. But like I didn't know how that would translate to my Excel sheet. This I kind of just like was brainstorming with the AI. I was like, hey, I kind of want this. These miners run on the same Wi-Fi as my laptop, so like let's just show me like what's going on with them. I didn't know how it was going to translate because I didn't even give it this sheet. I just what I did is I wrote let me show you my original prompt. So I spent like an hour and a half and I just wrote, I was just like explaining what I wanted with as much detail as possible. So I wrote this document and this is what I gave to the AI at first. And it spit out almost like a perfect, like it spit out almost exactly what I wanted. But I just basically described what I wanted. I said I wanted it to run in an HTML file like this because that was what I was familiar with. Like I'm not a computer programmer or like an app, like a developer or anything like that. I need something that I understand and I understand how to do this. And then I just described what this dashboard does, or my Excel file. So I was explaining all of that. I was explaining like how I do the scoring, and then I just gave it like this very rudimentary table of my values for my scoring legend, and explained like how I wanted them to be added up and when. And then I gave it my API key for collegefootballdata.org. And it just did it. Like it just did it. And I went in there and I was like, hey, I want this tweaked. I want this to look a little different. And I'm just mind blown by how good it is. This is my Bitcoin mining dashboard. This one runs a little bit slower sometimes. I think there's more going on in the background with this one, but really cool. I can just kind of like monitor what's going on with my miners and I can actually like push updates to them and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna close out of that for now. So I'm sure I'm going to bring you more updates for this. Maybe I'll do like a live refresh every week or something. That would be cool. Like recording a live refresh and reveal of the rankings every week. I think that would actually be really cool. So maybe that's what I'll do when the season starts. But until the season starts, I'll give y'all updates if I make any major updates, or anything like that. I'm really excited to see what this is going to be like. And to continue, this is just going to make my life so much easier and just open so many more doors for this. All right, so it's actually after 5 p.m. now, and I'm going to put these prompts into Claude and get a live update for y'all real quick. All right, here we go. I just put in my prompt, and it's going to make these updates. So let's do some live updates. All right, so it's going to try to change the way our schedule window works. Sometimes when you implement a change like this, you might get some new bugs. Everything might not work properly, so we're going to test it to see if it's working after. So it's going to give me a new HTML file that I'll save to that folder, and I'll delete the old one. So let's get the file. delete that prompt, and then let's drag this one to the trash. And let's get a new one of these, and let's refresh. Cool, so let's click on Indiana, for example, and it's showing no games scheduled for the 2026 season. So obviously that's not what we wanted. So I'm going to take a little screenshot, and we're going to drop that to Claude, and we're going to say looks like our future schedule is not populating. So let's see what he's got to say about that. So basically it's saying that it's unable to get the future schedule because the API from collegefootballdata.com doesn't release the future schedule yet because the season hasn't started. And then it's saying it's going to check to see if there's other place that I can go to look up the future schedules. Okay, so it's asking me how it wants me to handle the situation where our API doesn't have the available schedule yet. Let's see. I don't want to go and get, would it not just be able to go to ESPN and just look up all their schedules? I'm going to ask it that because I don't really know where another good data source is where I could even get this. So I'm going to see, would it just be able to look it up? Actually, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to say let's wait until the API has the schedule. So basically I told it, let's wait till the API has the full schedule, and when that becomes available, I want it to just auto-populate. I don't want it to just show me what's been logged during the season. I want to be able to see each team's upcoming schedule during the season. So it's just going to make sure that that's how it's going to work with the API. Hopefully the API actually does show us the schedule. It should show us the schedule when it comes in, and we're gonna download this anyways and run it, because this is gonna have the code that does this all automatically when the schedules become available. So I'm gonna go ahead and download that and just run it, and we're just gonna make sure that like nothing else broke. So let's click out of this and refresh. Cool. So looks like it's going good. Yeah, okay, so it gives us a little bit. 2026 schedule not yet available from the API. Schedules are typically published in the summer before the season. Cool. So it'll automatically update. Here's like what the schedule looks like from last year, and then I can actually go in and see everything that contributed to the game. That's pretty sick. Cool. So that's a live update for you. Sorry that it took so long to load, but I just wanted to show you kind of how that works. Hopefully you thought this was interesting. Let me know what you think. And yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. I'll see you all next time.